Welcome to the Bike Shed Podcast, the show where we care deeply about code quality, good architecture, and maintaining standards, while actively arguing over all three. I'm your co host, sitting like a shrimp in my chair, reviewing AI generated code and approving it without reading it. Scott K. Alongside me, a man who treats code quality like a sacred oath. If your architecture is wrong, he'll fix it for you. If your architecture is right, he'll still fix it for you. Matt Hamlin. And my other co host, a man who believes velocity is a feature, chaos is a tool, and production is the only real test environment. He ships first, explains later, and he's right often enough to be dangerous. Dylan, Spicy Take Curry. Matt, Dylan. In a world where everything ships instantly and nothing is read twice, how do we keep the bar high without losing our minds?
It's a good question, Scott. And very topical for this week. I feel like I don't know if very many of our listeners would call us like an AI shill podcast, like where we just like rant on and on and on about the value prop of AI and like how valuable it is. Um, but today if you do think that about us, but we're like kind of flipping the script. We're going to talk a little bit more about like AI adoption reality at maybe big tech. I don't know. Big tech's maybe not the right phrase for Whoop at this point, but just like larger tech companies, I guess, larger than 5 people. Um, the the other day, I saw this tweet, and I'm still calling it a tweet and still calling it Twitter, from Dax. He runs the company that runs open code and SST before that. I don't even know if they still maintain SST. Anyway, open code, it's like it's both a vendor and also a harness for agentic coding agents. Anyway, he tweeted this, and this is like, quote, "Everyone's talking about their teams like they were at the peak of efficiency and bottlenecked by ability to produce code. Here's what things actually look like. Your org rarely has good ideas. Ideas being expensive to implement was actually helping. Majority of workers have no reason to be super motivated. They want to do their 9 to 5 and get back to their life. They're not using AI to be 10x more effective. They're using it to churn out their tasks with less energy spend. The 2 people on your team that actually tried are now flattened by the slop code everyone is producing. They will quit soon. Even when you produce work faster, you're still bottlenecked by bureaucracy and the dozen other realities of shipping something real. Your CFO is like, what do you mean each engineer now costs $2,000 extra per month in LLM bills?" So I don't know. I saw this and I was like, a lot of this stuff hits home, at least for my experience at HubSpot. What are your guys' take? I've been talking for 5 minutes now.
Where do we start? I don't know. I don't even know where to start, but I'm just gonna say that there was one thing you mentioned at the end about the bills. It just like stuck with me. I went to an all hands software all hands recently, and hopefully no one that's director level listens to this podcast. Um, but they said, like, somebody asked how much are we spending on AI, and it was something like ballpark 500K a year, and I would say we probably have like 200 engineers or something, which didn't sound like a lot in the moment, but thinking about it, it's kind of a lot. But the consensus in the room was that that's fine from the higher ups, which I thought was interesting. So I don't know where to take this, but that's something that stuck out to me when you mentioned that.
Yeah, I was thinking about the cost angle also. Like we're in a shared Discord with people that are either past at Bleep Fair or currently at Bleep Fair, and they were talking a little bit about like what's the AI budget for the next year, either across the org or per engineer, and it's an interesting. I saw a few others also like related tweets about this concept of like when you go to talk about getting a job or like sort of like contract negotiations at a job, like you want to negotiate not only for your salary but also for your AI budget, which is kind of a weird state to be in.
Per individual, like I use it like this, so I need this much money.
Yeah. I need at least 5 million fast Opus 4.6 token expenditure
I
or
think if
budget.
they tell me to do that, I think I'm just gonna say I'm good. I'll just do it myself. Like I don't. At this point, I'm only using it. Maybe this maybe I regret saying this, but I feel like I'm only using it because they're asking me to, and it's very free. And I would totally just go back to free models if I had to, and I think I would be okay. Maybe I'm wrong.
No, yeah, I think, yeah, I feel like I'm maybe a little bit past that of like I'm trying to use it to get value out of it, but it's definitely like I'm doing so as such because it's so cheap, or because it's like yeah, it's like being like the bill's being footed by by the company instead of me needing to pay for it.
Opus 4.6 now says like how much in the context window, how much money you're spending. I'm not sure if you folks have that, but that started happening last week, and it was like such a demotivator for me. Um, it just like made me not. It made me like realize, oh yeah, this costs money, and it's like right in my face now, and I feel like that was intentional.
We've yeah, we've started to adopt Conductor, which is a UI, like a GUI, so like a graphical user interface over Claude Code or like other coding agents. Um, and it has its own cost like analysis feature where like for each sort of thread you do within it, it tells you how much this is costing. And that started a thread in our Slack channel about, like how much, like, is this accurate? Are these numbers accurate? Because people were like, oh, I spent $800 in an hour on Opus 4 point, I think 5 at the time. So it's like maybe not even that expensive of a model comparatively. And yeah, people were just like a little bit confused. I think Conductor was like miscalculating that, but the cost angle I think is certainly a really interesting aspect for actual AI adoption at work. Instead of, you hear about all these hype people on Twitter saying like, oh, you can do all these different things, and it's like it's start pay for the Claude Code Max 200 or 20x subscription, go into debt if you have to, kind of thing. And it's like, actually that's maybe it's not healthy to go into debt using these agents.
Fortunately, mine doesn't tell me how much money I've spent, but it does tell me how many tokens, so it's like I could do some basic math and figure it out.
Can I just start with like how pessimistic of a take this thing is? Like, this is just like so pessimistic, and like it's really funny because Matt mentioned, are we AI shills or not? And I think I'm more like AI bipolar. Like I love it, love hate relationship. Like I like it and then I hate it and then I like it and then I hate it. And I like it when it does something for me and I can like learn about it, but I hate it when it's like making things boring for me. So like I have a lot of thoughts about like each individual thing he said, but like for someone who works and creates like someone who works at an AI company that creates AI is like a real low opinion of people with this take. Like he seems to be very pro AI, but not pro AI, but he believes that people are, now that they have it, are just going to be less motivated than they were before. And a lot of the takes here feel like he thinks people just aren't motivated anyway. I I I I don't know. I almost want to break down like everything he said here, but
No, yeah, I was just say let's do it. Let's try to go line by line if we can, or like the bullet points that we rattled off, or at least the ones we have thoughts on. Maybe jumping down to the first point in the tweet, where like, yeah, Dax says like your org rarely has good ideas. Ideas being expensive to implement was actually helping. This is interesting. I don't know if I yet see the why uh why ideas being expensive to implement was good. I guess like maybe the only sort of thread I can connect there is like more friction in the process of having a good idea like makes the idea better over time, because you have like more competing thoughts into like you have more time to maybe think on it, more time to discuss it with the team, and then like kind of like iron out different aspects of it. But I do think generally speaking that point applies of like, I feel like everyone's so fast to maybe copy what everyone else is doing in the market with agents and not necessarily innovating on the concept.
oh, sorry. Well, at this point, I don't think like so he kind of like has a secondary point later on, which we'll get to, which mine might touch on a little bit, but I don't think it's that like orgs rarely have good ideas. I think that orgs rarely have revolutionary ideas. And like often there's more like middle of the road or lower level opportunities for what you're working on. But like now getting to his later point, kind of it's harder. It's usually like just hard enough to get everyone to agree. Like the harder thing is like the bureaucracy and making sure everyone agrees like we should do this thing. Or like sometimes for engineers that just means like I'm just gonna go do it and I'm not really gonna say much about it. Do now, ask for forgiveness later. So like sometimes like that's the approach. But you know, I'm kind of jumping down, but he also says like even when you produce work fast, you're still bottlenecked by bureaucracy and the dozen other realities of shipping something real. So like bureaucracy is totally like a thing here, and it totally touches to your org really has good ideas, but it's not. I don't think it's like good ideas. It's like more so revolutionary. It's like not often, and when you do have something you think like, hey, this might be you know, I remember working on an e-commerce store. We'd be like, oh, maybe we can do new things with the cart. Maybe we can try like some new things that like haven't been done yet. Getting people to agree to that because like Amazon hadn't done it, which is runs counter to everything we do. Like we want to run tests that are like, um, I guess bold, right, for lack of a better term. But like at the same time, it's like not much more bold than like here's one that Amazon did, here's one that this company did, and like we get a lot of the same data, but like we'd have really good ideas. It's just like how do you sell that to the rest of the company, or just do I just do it, or is it become a hackathon? And that's what I think hackathons have become a crutch, almost like every organization that I've worked at, where it's like, yeah, we know we want to do these things that are like industry standard because we're afraid of doing something that might not work, that is quote unquote like revolutionary as I'm describing it, but we're gonna let you just like kind of figure something out, and if we all agree that like this is kind of cool, we'll try it. That's how Spotify Wrapped came to be, right? And now like almost multiple companies have their own versions of a wrap. Someone just built this thing um, in a vacuum as a hackathon. So like a lot of good ideas come from hackathons, but it comes from the fact that like at a bureaucracy level, like these things are challenged because they haven't been done before. But at the same time, you hear like competing thoughts that's like we want to be creative, we want to try stuff new that's new, but there are sometimes are slim avenues to do it.
I guess are you guys as engineers at your company able to like make product choices like that? In the sense of like, I think that this would be better for the product. I'm just gonna do it on my own and then I'm gonna ship it and everyone's gonna like allow that to happen. I feel like I've always worked maybe when I'm platform teams I can do that, but on product teams it's very product driven. It's like this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna run an experiment. If the hockey stick stagnates or goes down, then this didn't work. Like there's and then like they don't go deeper. They might run like a different experiment later. Um, but it's just like if it doesn't increase the revenue or grow the company in some way, then they just give up on it.
I'm gonna give a nuanced answer because the answer is like I don't. I should say it depends. I was gonna say sometimes, like more often than not, it's the same as what you're saying, Dylan. It's like, no, I don't really have that room. But I remember I like told it. I just think this is an excellent, like, real creative example. We were building out like a rates page, and it's really just like the rate of money you would make. I don't want to get too into the details of their product, but we were the designers really just like really wanted to build something that was super easy to use, and it was we weren't thinking about we looked at like, well, there weren't so like many competitors of what we had, but we looked at like what are some other examples of how something like this would build this. But we really like had the designers build like what do we think is the perfect UX UI, and then I could give feedback, so I felt like I was part of that process. It wasn't necessarily something brand new, but we built something really cool. I was like really proud of that. I worked on that like for a week, but I was really proud of that UI. And it's not often that I built like a product feature that I really loved, and it came out super great, and it was great collaboration, something small in a space where like there's not really a lot of competition. But when um, sometimes at my current job, because I work at on an internal tool, I had felt like there was more room for like, hey, I'm just gonna kind of do this minor tweak. Nothing. I don't like build new features because the product I was working on is kind of difficult. But I did like when we moved over to a new feature, I did like refactor a whole page and use like different components. The substance of what was on the page was the same, but the technology I felt like I had ownership over is what I'm getting at, and I was able to drive. I'm now working on something different, which will come up in my stand-up update. And I actually feel like there's less room. Like we're trying to build something as fast as possible, so it's more like let's just like how can we get it out there as fast as possible. So um, I think there's ebbs and flows, and it kind of depends on what you're working on.
Maybe one that I think we've talked about maybe a lot, but maybe we'll have new ideas or new thoughts on is the majority of workers have no reason to be super motivated. They want to do their 9 to 5 and get back to their life. Um, I've definitely maybe talked about, I think on the pod or like in blog posts about like, I feel like the AI assisted development, agentic engineering, whatever you want to call it, is like originally had taken out a lot of the interest in the job for me. You get like a sort of a state of burnout of like, it's not fun anymore. And then I think I've maybe circled back to, it's like, okay, I can generate some really cool stuff with it. And so that brings back some of the energy. But I think the state in which like like AI adoption in the industry or like at work or at larger companies, it's like, I think it's hard to see that excitement at the moment, but I don't know. Do you guys have any more detailed thoughts there?
I feel like this one's highly dependent on what you're working on in the moment. Um, Sometimes I'm working on a project and I'm getting to do something that's technically creative, kind of maybe similar to what Scott was just saying. And I'm excited to like wake up and get back to working on it and like figure out this hard problem. And then maybe that ends, and next thing you know, I'm working on some product feature that I just don't think matters. And then I'm in this 9 to 5, get back to my life cycle where I'm like, all right, let's just like get it done, get the PR up, get out of here, get home.
Yeah. So again, like, and maybe he doesn't mean it this way, but I feel like this feels like very pessimistic again. Like, I do think that, well, the way I read it is like the majority of workers like were never super motivated, and like this doesn't help. That's like the way it comes off to me. Um, I and I have the same like opinion as Matt, whereas like I can see AI making my motivation less because a lot of the most complex and exciting problems we're writing the code or figuring out an elegant way to solve it, right? So I think I agree that like it's like harder to be motivated because of AI, and maybe he means it that way, but just the way I broke it down is he to me is like he already thinks that people aren't really that motivated, and this is maybe just making it worse. Um, Maybe he doesn't think that. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but more than anything, like I do agree with it being harder to be motivated. I go back and forth between wanting to be better at solving problems with AI and then just being like, okay, I accept that AI will like do some boilerplate and then I'll put my stamp on it later. I the latter is probably not the right way. It seems like everyone is trying to find this perfect way, but to use AI. But I still feel like it's pretty fucked up that we live in like a society where it's like, here's this tool that'll solve all your problems for you. By the way, you need to do pretty much everything to make sure it solves it in the right way. And so now someone gives you their tool that you have to pay for and you have to train it to be perfect. So what level are we doing the work for the company that's letting us use their product? That's just my hot take quickly. So I don't really have a different take on it, but more so I just feel like there's a lot of pessimism here.
I mean, I agree that it's maybe a pessimistic point of view, but I think it's like a pretty, I don't know, from my perspective at least, I feel like a lot of these points that Dax shared were like pretty accurate to what it's like, at least at HubSpot. I don't know, Scott, if you're like, do you think this is, from what your perspective, do you think it's relatively kind of like, along the same lines, maybe at least, not necessarily, one for one, but along the same lines of like what you're seeing internally also?
Yeah, I would agree that there's a lot of accuracy here. I think it just comes from maybe I'm just often really optimistic about or try to be optimistic. I'm not super optimistic about like currently about AI. Like as much as I do think it's like can be a multiplier, I'm starting to peel back and think like the more I see more of it be used, the more I'm seeing like okay, like looking at things look for the lack of a better term foreign like often, and then like it becomes harder for me. Like I actually slowing down sometimes to like well, I have been jumping into new projects, but sometimes I have to slow down and be like, okay, how does this thing actually work? But just prompting AI to do the work for me, I'm now, I don't want to say like what am I really doing? Now it's all about like architecture, um, cross team communication. What is the best thing to use? And then we have platform teams that are like dictating that, right? So it becomes harder to find opportunity. Now I'm just looking at lately. I've just been looking at like what are some of like the newer React things that my product doesn't use, so we can make some gains there. So basically, I'm getting at, yes, I do think that a lot of this is like 100% spot on, but some of it I think doesn't assume good intent, I guess. And we'll get to some of those points.
Here's a take, because I haven't given a take in a while. Using AI right now is basically just like a really fancy search engine that copies and pastes code for you.
I agree with that. It's like it's a streamlined, command lined search engine that instead of it giving you like a website, it gives you blurbs of text.
It just I'm gonna go a pessimistic route for a little bit. It's just stealing all of the internet's content and then trying to wrap it up in a nice bow in the way that it thinks that you want it, and it just like injects it into your IDE. And if you don't do the proper steps that you already did before we had LLMs of like reviewing the own code you're writing, the own code that the code that you go to Stack Overflow and copy and paste, if you're not reviewing that properly, you have the same exact problems. Um, to me, it's just like sort of twisted that process a bit.
It's reduced some friction and steps between getting that something that's semi-functioning um, into your IDE. But like it also depends on the use case and problem. Like one thing I think we talked about recently, which I'm a big pro of, is like it'll set up the boilerplate for like an engineer who has a good understanding of how code works, so you can kind of read that. Like I think that's one of the places where it shines the most. It's like you don't. I mean, it's bad for doc sites, like we learned about Tailwind, where it's like you don't have to go to Tailwind and learn about how a thing works anymore because all the boilerplate can come right off of the machine, basically. But when it comes to nuanced problem solving, it still requires time and effort.
I think uh I think I partially agree. I think I think it's a little bit more than just a advanced search engine that like pulls in snippets of code. I think or I think you could certainly say that for like the tab completion variants. I agree in that aspect. I think the larger perspective agents like Claude Code and planning mode, for example, it's like you, I I guess I don't know. I find it kind of highly unlikely that if it were just that, it like you would find an example of the exact same problem you're solving online in such a way, right? Like it's able to put together, or it's able to maybe decompose the problem you're trying to solve into even smaller problems that might exist online or in from prior examples. Maybe that's the better way to think about it, instead of the way I was thinking about it was like, obviously it's not having like genuinely net new ideas or concepts, but it's able to put pieces together in such a way that solves something that might be, might it hadn't seen in its training data, I guess is the way to put it. But
Yeah.
maybe it's just like decomposing the problem into small enough tasks that it's like, oh, I just need to, write a for loop. Okay, I can look that up. That's easy enough to know. Or, like going that far down into the problem.
Well, it's also like nuanced enough for your specific use case, and is what you're saying, I think, Matt. Like dependent upon the problem, right? Like it sometimes it does try to fit a square peg into a round hole, but sometimes it can just like kind of be like, okay, here's the exact Stack Overflow or the exact example of how this thing works. I need to fit it this way into your problem. But actually, something that I didn't call out about it being really good, that you're pushing it on, Matt, is like plan mode. One thing I'm big about, or just conversations with it, where you can be like, hey, I do this all the time. I probably said it, but like I'll be like, I have this problem with the app, and I have a way of solving it. Like, what are some ways we could approach solving this problem? And it'll give me like, I'll try to get it to give me like 3 different ways and tell me what it thinks is the strongest way before I push out like my solution on it. And I'll try to like look at different things it's thinking. So it'll give me some ideas that help me think about, okay, what is the best approach to this? And like, I might ask like, why'd you use this? Why'd you use that? To see if there's like a performance or cost benefit to what it's doing over my implementation. But like, it's a tool that you can like reiterate on a plan as well. So it's not just code related, but it's also conversational. So like, you can't have that same kind of conversation with a search engine. You'd have to like find very specific topics and then start to put things together. So you can actually like in, increase the confidence of your thought process um, based on what you want to, how you want to solve it, based on like a conversation, which can lead to some better outcomes.
Yeah, I'd say as long as like what it's giving you, you actually understand. That's kind of the problem with like vibe coding, right? Is people think that they're doing what you're doing and they don't actually understand what it's giving them and then they just take it and use it. But if you end up doing that in your actual job, then you end up just shipping bugs.
Which is where I think I'm not trying to be pessimistic myself, but which where I think he's right that, I've talked to other engineers that aren't just us that have been like really burnt out because like they feel like AI is just doing the job for them. And I've also seen code. Some of them are like really stoked about how easy the code is to generate, but I've seen people just like put out Claude's code exactly and leave the comments and like don't get me wrong, like some comments are good and maybe some of Claude's comments are good, but some of Claude's comments are just like I did a thing and it's like all right, like you at least like put some level of uh like at least show me you tried to understand it and like maybe added a comment or removed a comment um based on like what made sense here because it's not always we should yeet something into Claude and call it done. Although, like, I think they're like, I'm gonna be honest. Like, if I'm doing a bug fix on something that's like hard to understand, I will probably see how it solves it. If I want to get back to the thing that I'm working on that I think has higher value, like I'm lower level things, I might try to send it to it. But I don't. I'm not gonna just push out code, even if Claude wrote it. I'm not just gonna push out code and just be like, oh, this should work. Like, I need to make sure I understand it enough to know that I'm not causing a sev because like I actually haven't knock on wood caused any sevs yet, and I'm not trying to if I can avoid it because we take that seriously. But Claude's not always right. Like these bots aren't always right. Like sometimes I go through these like ruts where it's um keeps doing things. Like I know I said this like early on, but I had another instance where it was like writing a whole bunch of state and or what was it? I was trying to do an input and a button that toggles like a search button. And I was like, okay, I know I don't need use effect here. I'm going to use a handler. I'm going to use that handler to do some state. And inside that state, I'm just going to set the ref in the handler back and forth. And I forgot that I was like, I knew that you can't render those things. Like if they don't render in both renders, then the cycle's not going to know what to render because it's not going to be available each render. So they both had to be rendered, but I was doing display none on it, and I forgot that display none also affects the render cycle. So I had to do like visibility. So basically, what I'm getting at is like I was having this problem and getting way too into the weeds, but AI was telling me like, oh, you don't need to do it in the pre state in the set stater. Pull it outside. And I'm like, well, that's worse. And it's like, oh yeah, just use a use effect. And then I'm like, no, this should work. Why? Like I had to go through it and be like, why doesn't it work? And it's like, eventually I got it to be like, oh, you can't do that with display none, essentially, right? So my activity, it was a perfect case for the activity component, Matt. And I was thinking about that. I was like, this is an activity component
That was
usage, but
Dylan. Dylan had that call out.
Dylan. Oh, thanks, Dylan. It was an
I've been
activity component. I shared the activity component with the front end at Airbnb, and I was like, this is really exciting. And I was like, holy shit, this is a activity component opportunity. I wish it was available. We're on React 18, not 19. I would have tried it out. But anyway, so like Claude just kept being wrong about it, and I was like, good thing I like fundamentally understand this because I know that this should work, and I eventually kind of like solved it more on my own.
Uh, no, yeah, I think this kind of connected with some dots with me in my head of like I like not necessarily like psychosis. Like I think that's a common word thrown around with agents or AI, where it's like it like maybe takes you down a path or something. But I think a really interesting aspect that I think a lot of companies are probably starting to grapple with potentially, or maybe they're not even companies, but just more on the individual engineer scale, is the likelihood that like you can use AI to help you solve a problem, but the way that it solves it might not be the like quote unquote correct way. And like I don't know if there's a good solution for that exactly. Like how do you know what the correct way is? I don't know. I feel like this is very like vague talking. One example that comes to mind is like the other day we were working on RSPack work at work, and um, we have this like setup where RSPack wasn't resolving certain modules correctly where Webpack was, and so okay, so like I was like looking into it. I had the agent like sort of do an analysis of our Webpack setup compared to what we had with RSPack, like what plugins, what configuration are we missing, what's incorrect, and it led me down a path that works technically, right? Like it generated code, it made some updates to our RSpec config in such a way that we could fix the bug. But after having some AI review it, myself review it, and it's like okay, like the implementation seems fine, like it works. But then obviously like having a second or third set of eyes, reviewing it in code review, it's like people started like asking about it and talking about it, and we realized collectively as a team, it's like, oh, we talked about this kind of thing 6 months ago when we started rolling out the RSpec, or 9 months ago, or a year ago, and we sort of said actually we don't want to sort of go to the pattern that we had in Webpack, but instead we went down this different path, and it just means that different path didn't handle this yet, right? So like the agent generated code that worked, but it's not really the code we wanted in that setup. Um,
Right.
I don't know. This is a very long-winded way to say that yeah, using AI is like useful. It can generate working code, but it's not necessarily generating something that you might want to have around in your code base long term, or like go against patterns and things like that.
It'll like
Um,
solve problems and they'll work,
right,
but they might be prototypey ways to solve it, or they might be kind of
right,
gaming the rules, but they'll get you there. So that's why I like to call it like good for boilerplate or like prototyping. But yeah, sorry.
yeah.
That's exact
I
same.
no, I think we, yeah, I feel like I think we sort of maybe both went down a little bit of a tangent there. I think the, um, one other aspect that from the tweet that I was going to talk about, like it talked about sort of, I think sort of 2 points here. Like one is like, they're not using AI to be 10x more effective, using it to churn out code. And then the two people that on the team that actually tried are now flattened by the Slop code. Like those 2 points are interesting. I think one thing I've noticed anecdotally at HubSpot is the engineers, at least the engineers that I've seen that previous to like large scale AI adoption that were very effective at their job, whether that's like producing a lot of code or producing very high quality code, um, those engineers are still doing roughly about the same that they were doing before. They're not producing more, they're not producing less, um, but they're also like the code that they're generating isn't 100% AI generated. It's like maybe they'll use AI to do some of the menial parts of it, but then they're still putting a lot of thought and care and effort into those PRs that they open. So it hasn't really had an impact on them yet. I'm curious what you guys have seen. Collectively, we haven't really been at our jobs very long. That for each of us, but curious from what you guys seen of like the other productive engineers across the your teams, or how have they been adopting it? Have they changed their habits?
I feel like maybe things move a little bit faster, and some of it maybe comes from like automated code review. People are getting things caught quicker. Um, but also for me, I feel like it hasn't made me that faster, but it's given me an opportunity to like on the side do these little R&D side missions where I'll just like trigger agents to just like look into tech debt or things that I think can be improved and just help me like think through that while I'm like potentially waiting on a CI to finish or like in between tasks. And then I can come back to it and just like cook on that idea for a bit and be like, hey, is this actually going to work? So it's giving me a lot more opportunity to think about tech debt on the side. Maybe that's just how I'm using it. I could just be churning out 10 times the task, but I'm just like doing status quo task expectation, and then I'm using it on the side for more things.
Yeah. So like starting with like they're not using AI to be 10 times more effective. They're using it to churn out their tasks with less energy spent. I think some of that's true. Like I want to start with like the fact that like 10x is an absurd number, and we often use it like we're not even 2xing things. Let's be realistic. You might be like 1.3xing things if you're like doing things great. So no one is even 2xing. I want to start there. Like it's just not real. So like I think we set these super high bars by being um I guess I don't know, like hopelessly optimistic when we say things like that. And I think that's like kind of part of the AI sphere and bubble. So there's that. I do think it's true that a lot of folks are churning out their tasks with maybe some less energy spent, but I think there are pros and cons to that. I think some people are doing that because they're just like starting to figure out like how do I use this thing? Now I have more time to spend on other things. Like I would love to believe that my job is just writing code all the time, but it's not. So like less energy spent doing a task like that might free them up to do more things. So in theory, you are doing a little bit more. It's not 10x, it's maybe not even 1.5x, like I said. So there are pros and cons in that statement. The two people on your team that actually tried are now flattened by the slop code everyone is producing. They will quit soon. Have not experienced that. Like one of the people who is most active has been teaching folks like ways he uses Claude to be more performant. Um, I do agree that there's slop code and some people might be flattened by it. I haven't seen anyone quit. Like, where are you gonna go? Everyone uses AI. Like, so I don't know about quitting because of it. So like maybe this is more of a small team thing or like a elite engineering thing where they don't can't keep up with people producing bad code, but like we don't have automated code review. It sounds like this person doesn't either. This sounds like they need to teach um, folks better etiquette for getting code done. Like there needs to be better guardrails still around how the code gets out in this situation. But like I get it in smaller companies, you're trying to move quickly, but like there needs to be some way to say, hey, don't just put this slop in the code base, or how can we circle back to making this better or improving it. So I do understand it's probably real that good engineers are getting over worked to try to help others.
Well, I think, yeah, I mean, I think maybe the will quit soon part is just like a little bit of just add some flavor to it in a sense, like
Sure.
a spicy take. But I do think that there's probably a sort of a split of orgs that have adopted AI that have put critical thought into like what AI code looks like in their code base and like how to keep the bar high, the quality bar high. And then there's orgs that have adopted AI that maybe haven't put that critical thought in yet, right? And so I think this is like maybe speaking to the orgs that are in that latter bucket, in the sense that they've they haven't maybe realized that they're adopting a lot of tech debt through their usage of AI to generate code, or like they haven't yet realized that it's like impacting the quality yet. They just see it as like, oh, we're adopting it, and maybe we're starting to get 5% more tasks done in our in our Jira board every month because of it, right? And so like maybe that's like the lens they're looking at it, and not necessarily like, oh, the quality of the code base, which is again is a very hard thing to measure. It's like a very hard, like, okay, yeah, you adopted SonarQube, but like the actual quality of your code, you can't really easily measure that. So you don't really have a good sense of like, is it going down, is it going up? Um, so I don't know. Yeah, I think it's maybe speaking to slightly different organizations than maybe the ones we're working at potentially.
I'd be curious too to just talk about like, does anyone, I guess, like, do you folks feel like your teams or your organizations are like doing such a gung ho great job to make sure there's no tech debt? Like, are you doing things other than constantly trying to improve Claude files and whatnot? Like, I think at some level, you can have the most perfect Claude MD files and instructions and you're still going to get into the situations Matt and I talked about where it solved the problem in a less ideal way because you need to slow down still and make sure you give it all of the right instructions to solve the problem right, which is not much different than how engineers work without AI, right? Sometimes we need to solve a problem, make it work, and pitch that it needs to go out there immediately, versus sometimes we need to solve it the right way.
I think the way we're solving it, HubSpot, is not at the generation time, but at the review time. We haven't necessarily, at least on our team, like we haven't necessarily tightened our review, like what we expect out of code review, and like narrowed down the people that can review different PRs to our code base. But I've certainly seen, I think, code review like sort of quality or like comment quality like be very high or held very high. I think that was the case when I joined the team before we were heavily using AI for generating code, is like very high bar for code review. And so I think that's been something that's helped keep maybe keep us at a good state. So I don't know. I'm pessimistic that you can solve it at the Claude MD file, and maybe more optimistic that you need to keep a very high quality bar of human review when doing code review.
Yeah, I feel like it like trickles down from whoever people look up to, like your engineering leaders. How do they review code? How do they structure their PRs? Like everything. If because people want to operate in the way that they operate, so if they see them doing something and not like really caring so much about some slop code, they're going to do the same thing in their reviews. Um, and I feel like that's just the way it is. It's the culture.
I agree with that. We have like some really good like AI help in our code reviews, but sometimes like it's obsolete. Like it's like calling things out that like are never really going to happen. And I can see a lot of people be like, "Oh, did you look at this review?" And then I have to explain why the AI is wrong. It feels a little weird. But I also like another example is I reviewed. We have Lodash and we're removing it. And one of the folks was removing one of the functions. I forget what it was, but I like was doing a code review. AI didn't catch this. Like they were basically recreating arrays like inside of like maps over and over and over again. And I was like, oh, you can just pull this up, or you can use like a set, and you can do like this in an O of N solution. But like AI is not going to be like, oh, this is a good optimization to make here yet. I mean, maybe one day it will, but these are things that are like, yeah, I don't know how much memory this thing was taking up, but these are like good human review code comments to make on people's uh, problems. But these are things you're just like, if you don't actually look at it, you're not going to catch right now, at least.
Maybe stepping back a little bit, I guess, as more of a summary aspect, but unless you guys have more things to dig into specifically, but I think I feel like we've covered the bulk of them.
Because I have like I just want to say a little bit about the
Yeah,
last 2
go for
points. Okay. All right, so we'll just continue on. So even when you're producing work faster, you're still bottlenecked by bureaucracy and a dozen other realities of shipping something real. So this is like came to my first point. I'll be quick about it. Um, Bureaucracy is real. Like it is hard to those two ways, like of just like you kind of ask for forgiveness later, or you are doing something in a hackathon and you can somehow generate buy-in for it. It is very hard sometimes to get these new conceptual ideas out there. I think that this is like one of the best points in um, the whole tweet. And then the last take, your CFO is like, what do you mean? Each engineer now costs 2,000 extra per month in LLM bills. So that is something that like, yeah, a CFO might say that, but I feel like this is like a failure on the organization if they're really thinking this to not understand that, hey, we're digging into this space and it's going to incur cost, and the CFO should understand what that is, and we should be using dashboards to measure that. So we're definitely measuring how much every person is using. We currently don't have a budget, but one of my hot takes of 2026 is that by the end of the year we're going to start to actually have like budgets that we need to follow, or there's going to be some loose rules, maybe not quite strict yet, around how we manage that. I think that yes, like they might say, "Oh crap, this costs way more than we thought." Like that is very realistic. But if like they didn't know that was going to be cost up front for this because these companies are pitching to them, like I think that's a little extreme. Maybe again, like Matt, you'll probably say that's kind of his point is to like add a little flavor to the tweet. But at the same time, like everyone that AI is going to generate more cost. The thing is it actually producing more value for you that justifies that cost?
I think actually I don't think this is like a maybe a spicy perspective from him on the on like the cost. I think it's entirely likely that some of us just don't have the visibility of like what the C suite might be talking about at our companies in terms of expenditures, and like they might be actually worried about how much it's costing. I think also for the most part, 2 years ago, this whole expense wasn't a thing really. Uh, certainly there were some things, right? Like a Copilot license or something, but for the most part, like okay, you paid for the common SaaSes, right? Like the Slack, GitHub usage, whatever, Jira, etc. But I think that this whole bucket of like AI expenses wasn't really a thing, and then it ballooned to be probably one of the most expensive buckets that companies pay for of resources that you need to give to your teams in order for them to like do work. And so I think that is certainly, I'm sure there's got to be a decent number of C-suite that are like sweating when they go to bed, say like, what are we going to do? We're spending so much per individual, per employee on this. And I mean, I think Dylan was talking a little bit about like maybe you have perspective, Dylan, at Whoop of like seeing the budgets being talked about maybe more openly. I haven't
Yeah,
seen it at HubSpot, but yeah.
that's just a new thing. It came up in an all hands. No one's really been asking. We've just been told, hey, just do whatever you want, which is kind of crazy. And we'll see where that ends up. And it kind of feels like they're treating it the same way AI companies are treating the way that they like raise money and use money. It's just kind of like this will probably be a net positive in the end. We have no idea. Um, just just believe, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, I've seen that at startups. Yeah, I'm gonna stay firm to my point here though. I I I like that take. I kind of, oh man, I'm not doing it. I kind of agree that there might be like praying like this stuff, but like at the same time, you're responsible. If you're the CFO, you're responsible for understanding or having at least some understanding of how this might impact you. You should be looking at ways to um to handle this situation, and that's why I think we see so many layoffs in our industry, in our field, which is very unfortunate. But I wouldn't be surprised if you continue to see companies struggle and like they maybe they'll cite AI, maybe they won't, but like their AI costs are probably causing some layoffs as well.
All right. Yeah, I think we covered a lot of the points of the tweet. I'm sure maybe Dax would probably be surprised that his tweet had 3 random people talk about it for 30 plus minutes. But I don't know. I think it's I agree with Scott that like I think overall it's like a lot of this stuff feels very pessimistic. I think even that though, it's like I think it is a fairly balanced perspective of what it looks like today for AI adoption at work. And I think it's like maybe the polar opposite. Well, I don't know. Polar opposite may be the wrong way to phrase it, but it's pretty distinctly different from what the AI hype slop boys on Twitter are talking about in terms of like, yeah, you can just replace every SaaS that you have with a one-shot prompt to Claude Code 4.6 Opus fast, and you'll be all set in 30 minutes, and that's it. But so I think it's like pretty different from that perspective, and I think it's like obviously it's really easy to get biased by what you see there to say like, oh yeah, like certainly I'll adopt AI because it lets me replace all the 10 other things I'm paying for, um, and that's not the case.
Speaking of Twitter or X, I think it's down right now. I can't get it to load. I do agree with you about it, Matt, that it's a really good tweet. Its accuracy is high. I think that a lot of his tweets seem quite pessimistic. I think that might be part of his flavor, but I'm sure he'll block all three of us once he hears this.
You're presuming he'll hear us.
I'll tweet it
You
to
can
him.
link it to him.
Yeah. All right. Any further thoughts on the tweet, or do we want to transition into stand up?
Stand up.
All right. Dylan, what's up with you?
Recently messing around this weekend with a side project. Using, I had this thing that I installed on my house recently for like home automation. It's called Home Assistant Green. It's basically just a Raspberry Pi, but with some stuff pre-installed. I should have just bought a Raspberry Pi. And then I realized after watching some random YouTube video that there's a way to like block all ad traffic that comes through your network at the router level using a Raspberry Pi. And then I realized, oh, I can install something onto this Home Assistant. And now all the traffic that comes through my router, it like gets checked at the DNS level to say like, is this an ad domain? And if it is, it just gets blocked, which has been really cool because any device that's connected to Wi-Fi, I feel like Scott's smiling. He's already got this all set up. I'm like years behind. But like if I go on my phone and sign into Wi-Fi, I go to like a recipes website. This is like a really basic example. Recipe websites are just littered with ads, and I feel like I can never get to the damn recipe. But now I scroll through and there's just recipe text, and the rest of the website's blank. It looks great. And so I've been experimenting with that, and that kind of led me down the road of starting to experiment with Plex. So I got Plex set up this week as well, to start like just starting to own some of the content and not have to be so stuck in the streaming service gives it to me and takes it away. That whole thing. I sent a video to Matt that's made it's from Cory Doctorow, I think is his name. He's the guy that like coined the word enshittification. We've maybe talked about that in the past, but he has a newer video where he digs into like at one point in time we had the VCR and it was this great invention, and then we uninvented the VCR recently, which is insane. Like a really interesting way to look at it. We just like took away that great invention of you own this content and now it's gone. Yeah, so that's what I've been digging into this weekend. It's been fun.
That's super cool. My senior staff engineer built all his own home automations, and I just felt like I should connect you with him.
It's a good time. I'm like driving my wife nuts. She's like, "You spent 6 hours on this nonstop." And I'm like, "It's almost ready. There's just like a couple more config tweaks. Don't worry, it's gonna work." Fixated, and I'm like, "It's gonna work." And I finally got it all working.
Scott, what's up with you?
As usual, I didn't take the time to prepare. I've recently, so I didn't move teams, but I got asked to work on a project that I thought is owned by another team, but as I'm coming to learn that it's like a Tiger team. It's delivery management console. I don't know how much I'm supposed to say, but basically, we for triaging incidents that occur on the site, we use like a Salesforce. Well, we use Salesforce APIs, and we have a whole product built out with Salesforce. Trying to migrate off Salesforce and use our own internal APIs and front end. And
Dude, hit us up. We'll give you just hit up HubSpot. Like you guys should move off Salesforce over to HubSpot.
no, we're moving on to our own internal Airbnb. That's the whole point, actually. So yeah, we're working on that project. I've been working on it for a couple of days, and I'm getting asked questions. I have no idea the answer yet, but I need a little bit of ramp up time. But I'm working on that. Should be exciting. Should be fun. Product looks pretty good so far. Really tight deadlines, but that's the main thing.
Scott, you should hit me up. I'm working on a software as a service. I just started on it 5 minutes ago. It's gonna replace Salesforce. I've actually been working on it this entire podcast episode.
Yeah, Claude's working on it, or you're
Yeah.
working on it.
Yeah,
Perfect.
it'll be ready. Just let your team know. It'll be ready soon.
Can we start like an actual company now? Um, in life, things are going well. We went play tennis Saturday, and we went skiing 2 weekends ago. We were going to San Francisco first weekend of March for a wedding. We're gonna do some skiing there at Lake Tahoe. Um, Very exciting. Never skied on the West Coast. Gonna compete in a powerlifting meet at the end of March. Gonna do that. Wish me luck. Things are going well. Still writing code. Still tired. Matt, what's up with you?
Oh man, I feel like I don't have that many exciting updates this week. I don't know if I shared in the last podcast, but yeah, I had Claude help me do a contribution back to RS Pack, which is like a bundler that we use for generating code for websites and whatnot. So that was pretty cool. It's managed by ByteDance, the company behind TikTok, which is kind of interesting. But the review cycles were like, I'm pretty sure the person reviewing my PR was like based in China, so it was like I would make a change or something and then have to wait like a full day before I got any feedback on it. But yeah, that landed, so that's pretty exciting. In real life, we hosted a Super Bowl party, which is pretty dope. Yeah, I don't know. It's been good.
Yeah. And I got second place in the commercials bingo,
That's true. Yeah.
which
It
turned
was
out to be probably like more fun than the actual game.
yeah, we were all commenting that like why did they fill all the extra airspace with this random game happening in the background instead of ad time. But I guess the other exciting aspect is that my team won, which is always exciting. So go
Yeah, it's
Seahawks.
great.
All right.
The only my take from this.
Sometimes the best team doesn't always win.
Whoa, they did this time.
Are we way past the Super Bowl at this point? Can we have takes on the Super Bowl?
Yeah.
Okay.
My take was that the MVP was wrong, but
I
Wasn't
agree.
it
I
voted on
wholeheartedly
by
agree.
audience? Wasn't like audience voted on?
It's like 13% of the vote is based on audience, and the rest is like media members, and then the NFL itself. And it's wrong though.
It's rigged.
They gave it to the wrong player.
I feel like this should have been the kicker this year. The first kicker MVP. It would have been sick.
Yeah, he
Was
deserved it.
Wait, really? Like the Patriots never gave it to the kicker? Like when Adam Vinatieri won
Nope.
like 5 Super Bowls, 3 Super Bowls? Wow, that's
Oh,
crazy. Yeah, it's like if you're a kicker or a punter, just don't expect to
So
be
hard to do
glorified.
anything. Yeah.
it's just crazy. That dude basically like kept them in. He's the reason they won.
Yep. Yeah.
And everyone's like, he didn't kick very far field goal, so it doesn't matter. I don't know why Elmo or whoever that was is given takes
Has
for
Big
joined the
Elmo.
podcast. I think the other Super Bowl aspect here is that Dylan dropped some deep lore on himself during the Super Bowl party, which maybe we need to cut out from the podcast. But Dylan himself was a kicker, so
Yeah,
that's why he wanted the
that's
MVP to be a kicker.
I went. I was a kicker in high school. My glory days.
All right.
We'll
That
whole
tracks.
episode. Yeah, that tracks. That makes your personality makes sense now.
All right. Thanks everyone for tuning in this week. Remember to leave a review in the episode and your show and your favorite podcast network. We appreciate 40-star reviews out of 42 the most. So if the app doesn't let you do that, then it's definitely a bug on their end, not on ours. Feel free to join the Bike Shed community Discord server to connect with other folks in the tech ecosystem, share your thoughts with us and the listeners. You can find a link to the server as well as our other episodes, transcripts, episode summaries, random other content at bikeshedpod.com. That's bikeshedpod.com, all one word. If you enjoyed this episode or other episodes, please share with your friends or enemies or just some random person you meet on the street. We need more listeners. We appreciate it. See you maybe next week. TBD. Peace out.
Later.